everyone for joining today. We look forward to taking you guys through our discussion today, which is really going to be talking about maximizing your RPA, RPO. Really simple principles that are going to help you reduce your total cost of ownership around your RPA programs and automations. Just to restate some of the housekeeping things and just give them some bit more context. Again, throw any questions you have into the question box. We'll answer them at the end. We'll share a copy with this webinar, a recording of this, obviously, with all registrants at the end. And just so everyone's aware, you guys are on mute. So feel free to enjoy a snack or some coffee while you're partaking today. So we're going to take you guys through a little bit of an overview of what Blueprint is. We're going to talk about really the costs of RPA. We're going to give you a little bit more context. Then we're going to jump right into today's topic and break down what the cost of ownership looks like. And then we're going to show you a little bit about how Blueprint enables RPA initiatives to lower these big costs in a live demo before we take any questions that you might have at the end of the presentation. So as Bruno mentioned, my name is Matthew Dodgson. I want to just give you guys a quick introduction. I head up the Global Solution Engineering team here at Blueprint Software Systems. I support the delivery of Blueprint's Enterprise Automation Suite, which is this modern solution that we're going to show you guys today for scaling process automations, initiatives, and really bringing them up to the enterprise. I've been working in the industry for quite some time, been with Blueprint for almost 10 years. I'm very passionate about working with fellow people that are in the space, with our customers and our prospects, and I look forward to sharing with you guys some of those details today. So to give you some more context of who we are, we're Blueprint. We're a leading provider of digital process design and management solutions to Fortune 1000 organizations. We work with global leaders from every industry, and they're using our cloud-based platform, the Enterprise Automation Suite, in tandem with their RPA platforms to really identify, design, and manage high-value automations with precision and ease by creating what we call digital blueprints. Now, creating digital blueprints replaces the need to create time-consuming, error-prone documents, like PDDs, for example, and it drives both quality and efficiency at numerous points along the automation workflow. This enables our customers to spend less time designing, managing, or fixing automations, and really more time on things that directly grow their business. So what do we mean when we say they use us alongside their RPA tool to identify, design, and manage these automations? At the heart of our platform is what we call a digital blueprint. And digital blueprints themselves are much more than just the idea of a process model. They contain everything you need to efficiently and effectively deliver high-quality automations, including the detailed process flows, all those dependencies related to the systems or compliance regulations, functionals and non-functional requirements, things like user stories, acceptance tests, functional tests, and even specific implementation details that are directly integrated all into your RPA platform. Using the Blueprint platform and our digital blueprints has many benefits, including having all assets and stakeholders in one central platform, which really streamlines workflows, improves alignment, so you can move your projects forward with speed and precision. We have intelligent modeling and assistance built into Blueprint and integrations that make it faster and easier to design and build automated processes, while also improving the quality of those processes. And our enterprise analytics and dashboarding, which helps you prioritize and measure what's working, manage change proactively, and really sharpen and scale your strategy across your organization. So now let's jump into exactly what we wanted to cover today. Now, we all know why RPA is at the top of the hype cycle and why so many organizations are aggressively adopting it and trying to scale. So we won't get into the weeds of those details. You guys are all very familiar and well aware of that. But just as we all know how RPA can be so impactful and beneficial, we also know that everything isn't as perfect as it seems. The reality is that RPA projects are struggling to capture the value they expected. In a report by EY, 50% of RPA projects were failing to meet their objectives. And in another study by Deloitte, only 3% of organizations have been able to scale their RPA initiatives. Now, something that's contributing to those challenges and the inability to capture the maximum value that RPA offers is RPA's total cost of ownership. Here's the business case for RPA at its most basic. The returns of automation in the form of the productivity, quality, and cost savings should by and large dramatically and drastically outweigh RPA's total cost of ownership. But the business case is actually being turned upside down because of RPA's total cost of ownership spiraling out of control for a lot of programs. And there's a few reasons why costs are being inflated, and we're going to get into that for you guys. But first, let's take a look at the different cost components that contribute to the overhead. Quantifying an exact price for the total cost of ownership of RPA is a challenging exercise. There are lots of variables to consider, like the different prices of licensing for RPA tools, the use of external providers like business process outsourcing, and for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to keep things simple and look at the cost of one bot according to universal components that every RPA program sees. So according to Deloitte, a single bot tends to consume somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000. That number is actually closer to 15,000 when you account for all the elements that contribute to the total cost of ownership of one bot, which include the licensing for all your users, the training all your stakeholders, on how to use the RPA tools, the infrastructure you need to deliver and scale the automation, like cloud delivery models and virtual desktops for your bots, the add-on tools for your automation tool chain, like process discovery tools, or even Blueprint that improve the lifecycle of your bots and quality of your RPA initiatives. The use of consultants and consultancies and professional services to help you with implementation, the cost of employing professionals to develop and deploy the actual automated processes of bots, and arguably the most underrated cost of any RPA program is the effort needed to maintain and support your automated processes, especially when they break, which they do. So obviously, those cost components don't carry the same weight. This graphic is a rough breakdown of how much each component contributes to the total cost of ownership for RPA. Now, I should also note that this breakdown is for unattended bots, which deliver the most value for automations. The cost for attended bots would be very different, with licensing probably being the largest cost contributor, because developing and deploying and maintaining attended bots is the simpler, less complex practice. Now, you'll probably notice this in the previous graphic, but pooling the smaller components together makes it obvious that the most expensive components by far are development and deployment and maintenance and support. Coincidentally, it's these two components that RPA programs are struggling with the most, causing the cost of ownership to inflate to the point where it lowers RPA's return on investment. Now, what's causing these two areas to spiral out of control in terms of costs can be boiled down to the following. For development and deployment, RPA has regressed in terms of technology delivery. The most common way for automation design to be communicated to RPA developers is by packaging it in a slow, error-prone, manual, paper-based document like PDD or process design document. Complex technology isn't designed on paper. Purpose-built systems with the granularity needed to build sophisticated solutions are required, and RPA is no exception. Documents like PDDs cause slower development and increase the likelihood of error, which only drives up the total cost of ownership. The ironic part, too, is that we are building automations in the most manual way possible. And ultimately, they also lead to missed requirements, which produce fragile bots that break more often, eating away at the business value RPA is supposed to deliver. Now, for maintenance and support, in the rush to automate, whether it was to respond to the economic challenges the pandemic caused or simply leverage the benefits RPA offered, organizations are now picking up the pieces from constant RPA break-fix cycles, bot errors, and the RPA downtime that follows, leading to a pretty damaging synergy, low ROI, the inability to scale, and a high total cost of ownership. But like we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, there is a simple design, planning, and governance. There are simple design, planning, and governance principles that RPA stakeholders can implement right away to reduce these two heavy cost components that radically lower RPA's total cost of ownership while maximizing their returns. And that's exactly what we're going to show you right now. The burden of high RPA maintenance and support has been a major contributor that has both increased RPA's total cost of ownership and caused RPA programs to underdeliver. To give you a loose frame of reference, if you're running 20 bots, the average number of break-fix cycles and effort needed to maintain and support those bots can cost upwards of $400,000 in business value lost. Lowering this burden that's driving up the RPA costs and not allowing orgs to scale and deliver the ROI that was expected is very much possible by improving these three areas of your RPA practice. Improve dependency mapping, proactive change management, and increased alignment. Zeroing in on dependency mapping, RPA is essentially a technology that's built on top of other technologies. In fact, the most common reasons bots break are due to system changes, like an update to Salesforce that changes fields in the UI, for example, expiring credentials, which locks the process out of a system it interacts with, so that takes it down, and business changes, like the finance team updating a template they use or change the currencies they support, causing a bot to break. When the dependencies an automated process has are not precisely mapped and explicit, it's difficult to control the cost of this RPA component, because when a bot experiences an error, it's not only sitting idle and not delivering business value, but a full-time employee has to also spend time looking for the root cause of that error by examining the code, repairing it, testing it, and then redeploying the automated process. Each automated process and even granular process steps must be connected to these legacy systems, the business rules, and the regulations, which they have a dependency to better manage change. Which brings us to our next point. Change is a constant in any organization and industry. Many RPA programs are still managing change in a reactive manner. Now, what I mean by this is that there's no preventative action. Corrective action is only triggered when bots throw errors. This type of reactive approach only increases the RPA downtime, and it really drives up that total cost of ownership. Proactive change management is only enabled when better dependency mapping, that is, when bots are meticulously linked to all their legacy systems, rules, and regulations that they're connected to. With better dependency mapping, you also get the ability to identify and visualize the impact of change, so corrective action can be taken before the bot fails and needs hours and hours of diagnostic work. Unsustainable RPA maintenance and support is also a byproduct of siloed automation design and planning. For RPA programs to control the cost of maintenance and support, all stakeholders need to be able to collaborate easily in a centralized RPA design and planning environment. Siloed, disconnected tools like email for discussions, some type of process editor for design and definition, and then the RPA tool itself, where visibility is lost, just won't cut it. You need a holistic tool that centralizes your RPA design and planning and execution, and it really prioritizes the visibility to all stakeholders, and this is a must. So that brings us to RPA development. That brings us to RPA development and deployment, which is by far the most expensive component of RPA's total cost of ownership, which is normal because it accounts for all the resources needed to build, deploy, and monitor bots. Now, the reason it's ballooning for the total cost of ownership is because, as we mentioned earlier, RPA has seemingly taken a step backwards in technology delivery. The high cost of RPA development and deployment can be significantly decreased with a better digital way of packaging and communicating automation work, a way that prioritizes development by delivering the precise guidance and context developers need to build high-quality bots the first time. Fortunately, that's something Blueprint can do for you today. So now, let's jump into Blueprint's Enterprise Automation Suite and see how our solution precisely helps you lower your RPA maintenance, support, development, and deployment while producing higher quality automations that really maximize the ROI of your RPA investment. Now, first off, I'm going to show you precisely how Blueprint helps lower the cost of RPA development and deployment with digital blueprints and better guidance for RPA developers ultimately. So here we are in Blueprint. Blueprint is a web-based, cloud-hosted environment that makes it easy for people to get access to information, but ultimately it gets people off of their desktop and off of a file-based approach. Now, we are working in this invoice processing example. And what we're going to do here is we're going to import a captured process from Fortress IQ. We're going to pull in this extract invoice example. And here we have a digital blueprint for an extract invoice process that we captured and are automating. Now, without Blueprint, we would have to capture all the specifications and the design in a big document before essentially throwing it over the wall to IT for development while they slowly unpack all the information needed to start development. This replaces the PDD, or large document that folks use today, completely digitizing the approach, which will have a direct impact on lowering the cost of development and deployment, and you'll see why. But Blueprint also gives you the opportunity to easily model your processes for automation and create these digital blueprints in an intuitive designer, which I'll show you right now. So for example here, I'm going to create a new artifact. I'm going to create a process here, and then I'm going to give it a name. Once I've done that, I'm going to create, so I'm going to create an extract invoice process. So here's our blank canvas where we will quickly and easily define our to-be process that has to be automated. Adding more steps to the process is as easy as clicking on these additional step actions where we can add a new task. So for example, add a new task here. We can even toggle the system steps, which get a more granular detail that allows us to bring in UI and different system and really define how the process interacts with other systems and how it's going to drive precise development, and ultimately it's going to yield a much higher quality automation. But in consideration of time, we'll go back to the capture process we imported. Of course, you'd like to see how you can easily build digital blueprints from scratch and in detail, but by all means, reach out for a demo. I personally love to show you how this is done and how the full power of Blueprint can be used over a call. So now back in our original digital blueprint. Here is where we can optimize the process with all the capabilities that digital blueprints deliver. For example, based on previous automation designs and the production bots that we've cataloged, the system is recommending certain policies, regulations, rules, and other dependencies that might be missed and apply for this automation. This is an example of our intelligent recommendations and our dependency mapping that you don't get in other automation design solutions on the market. This intelligent assistance reinforces a strong tracing strategy to ensure no dependencies are missed or overlooked, which significantly reduces the bot outages when the need for maintenance and downtime. Sorry. All of these dependencies are linked directly to the digital blueprint and are used to quickly report and identify the impact of change. And that happens when this is live and in production. Which ultimately helps us to contribute to proactive change management. And it really an approach that enables Blueprint to start to prevent these fires from popping up, as opposed to the approach today, which is very reactive, like fighting fires. Most importantly, we can automate these digital blueprints by generating a bot package and sending it directly into any of the major RPA platforms. This allows us to accelerate the transition to development and remove the manual PDD document process. Again, reducing the effort of RPA development and deployment while producing high quality, resilient automations because of the precise context digital blueprints deliver. So in this particular case, we've actually sent this automation over into Blue Prism. Now here is the generated bot package in Blue Prism. This process flow serves as the baseline bot, or a bot skeleton, if you will, that the developers will use to get started. In other words, without Blueprint, an RPA developer would first have to interpret what exactly needs to be built by digesting a large PDD and recreating everything from scratch. This is how Blueprint provides a head start on development and not only reduces the time it takes to develop bots by upwards of 50%, but also leads to higher quality development because there's nothing lost in translation. In addition to the process flows, the digital blueprint also sends over links to all the dependencies for easy access and transparency, ensuring they have precise guidance for the bot that the business wants to be built. Without Blueprint, these would be buried somewhere in a PDD, and they're easy to lose track of and miss altogether. Now, in addition to automating the digital blueprints into a bot package, digital blueprints can also be used to automatically generate suites of test cases and test scripts, which can then be used for development and UAT testing, further reducing the effort on development and deployment, and really keeping the total cost of ownership for RPA at a minimum because it drives that information so efficiently from the design stage into the testing phase. But digital blueprints can also automate the backlog of user stories needed to develop the bot. So here we've generated a backlog of user stories for this automation and synchronized it directly in Jira, which is what this development team uses to help guide and manage their work. So now that we've kind of covered how Blueprint can help lower the cost of RPA during development and deployment, we're going to show you how Blueprint can specifically reduce the cost of RPA maintenance and support by enabling that improved dependency mapping, proactive change management, and increased alignment. So if we fast forward in this particular example to after the completion, testing, and deployment of the automation, Blueprint continues to deliver value throughout the life of this new automation. It's helping to streamline changes and ensure continued compliance. And this is where Blueprint enables proactive change management. Here, for example, we have notifications of things that have changed that might affect the automations. These notifications are summarized at the top, and it can be categorized in these different diagrams of category and severity. For example, let's say you're only interested in the regulations. So we'll start to filter this down to specific regulations. And of those, we only care about, in this case, the high severity ones. This filters down to a single change that's happening. With a click in Blueprint, it can tell you exactly which out of the entire portfolio of automations are going to be potentially affected. Clicking this particular notification takes us to what's called the impact analysis view. Now, without Blueprint, performing an impact analysis like this would be a piecemeal practice where you essentially need to manually isolate each bot that might be impacted by the change and then dig into the code to understand what the implications are. Here, you can see that a change to this part of the regulation will potentially impact these exact 5 automations, including the one we've recently been focusing on around invoicing. At this point, we'd like to alert the owners of these automations that they need to take action before the bot fails and is subject to hours of investigation while it sits idly losing business value that it's supposed to be delivering. So in this case here, what we're going to do is click on our little alert icon, and we can enter in a note into this particular alert to notify the owners and teams, letting them know of this change and that they need to analyze their particular automation. And we won't send this out. And now that the owners have been alerted, they can actually action off this. They can do something with it. Without Blueprint, the most typical way that all of this is coordinated is via email, which is definitely not efficient and not easy to manage. Now, let's kind of switch chairs here for a moment and become those owners who were just notified. As an owner, Nancy, I'm going to log into Blueprint because I received a notification. And here, as the owner of that process, I see alert in my personal dashboard that identifies the regulation that's changed, which automation I need to look at, and any associated comments that have been provided. With everything linked, I can now go explore the regulatory change and see exactly what it is. And I can even navigate into Blue Prism to the affected part of the automation, or I can send that note to my team to have them investigate. Now, as we've shown you today, Blueprint creates value across numerous categories. And so all of that rolls up in the primary value of the enterprise automation suite, which is significant improvement in automation quality. Higher quality automations have less downtime and fewer break-fix cycles, and thereby require less maintenance. And because of higher quality automations, RPA's total cost of ownership is dramatically reduced, while the availability of your bots is increased to really maximize your returns from that RPA, and it really enabled you to scale out to the organization. Now, here's another visualization of Blueprint's impact on RPA's total cost of ownership and maximizing ROI. Let's use a conservative estimate that assumes each automated process is supposed to deliver $250,000 in business value. Without Blueprint, bot outages and the effort needed to fix them can cause RPA maintenance and support costs to skyrocket. For one bot, assuming that it breaks 6 times per year on average, and that's being generous. If each break takes about 20 hours to fix, then that's about 120 hours of work per year, or 120 hours of downtime, leaving the bot only able to run as planned about 92% of the time. At 92% uptime, that means about $20,000 in business value is lost in the downtime. Now, if you've got one bot, these numbers are hardly anything to phone home about. But if we start to scale that up to 10, 20, 50, or even 100 bots, that value becomes quite significant. Now, by using Blueprint, we've seen customers build significantly higher quality bots that break half as much as they used to, also a conservative number, which means that their bots are now able to run 96% of the time. That means they can now deliver $10,000 in business value that they otherwise would have lost in downtime, while they're also saving about 60 hours of work time that would have been needed to fix the bots. That's $3,000 in team costs. If you have 50 bots that are breaking 6 times per year, not only are you spending 6,000 person hours fixing those bots instead of building new ones, but that downtime is costing you $1 million in business value that was supposed to be generated through those automations. Now, if you can build bots that break just half as much, that's $500,000 in business value that you're now getting that you couldn't before. Not to mention 3,000 team hours that can now go towards more strategic activities and $150,000 in saved team costs. So to sum it up, what we've covered today, the business case for RPA is being turned upside down, where RPA's total cost of ownership is really outstripping its returns. RPA development, deployment, maintenance, and support are both the biggest components that contribute to the overall cost, and also what's causing those costs to spiral out of control. But with simple design, governance, and change management principles, RPA's total cost can be dramatically lowered while also maximizing those returns. Those principles include replacing slow, error-prone, paper-based manual documents that lead to more breaks and outages with digital blueprints that produce higher quality automations. You have to improve your dependency mapping with things like Blueprint's intelligent recommendations and assistance, enabling a proactive change management strategy with better dependency mapping and instant impact analysis. and increasing the alignment for all your RPA stakeholders with digital blueprints and a centralized environment to really manage change and robust governance. So if you're interested, just visit the link on the screen to schedule a free consult with one of our solution experts like myself to see firsthand how Blueprint can deliver the value we create for your organization. Within that conversation, we can do a cost analysis to see how your RPA costs can be reduced with Blueprint. And at this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions that folks may have, and be happy to take those now.
That was great, Matt. Thank you. So we're opening up the floor now to audience questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to pop it into the question tab in the control panel on the right side of your screen. We have a few that have come in throughout the presentation, which I'll get started with. The first question we have here is, in one of the last slides, I noticed Blueprint provides bot migration. Does that refer to moving a bot from one RPA platform to another? Can you elaborate?
Of course I can, absolutely. So thanks, Bruna. So one of Blueprint's popular use cases is facilitating the migration of entire bot portfolios from one RPA platform to another. Blueprint's Enterprise Automation Suite allows you to ingest bots from all the major RPA platforms, and then we reverse engineer them into our platform and convert them into this common format known as a digital blueprint, which we looked at today. From there, these digital blueprints can then be automatically synced with any target RPA tool, meaning bots no longer have to be rebuilt from the ground up. And that's why we're able to reduce migration costs by up to 80% and really accelerate RPA vendor switches by a factor of 3 times.
Awesome. Here's another one. You mentioned that Blueprint is able to automatically generate user stories. We use Jira to manage the development work on our bots. Does Blueprint provide an integration that would enable us to sync those user stories with Jira?
Absolutely, we do. So that's a great question again. And my apologies if I didn't go into it in enough detail during the demo portion of the presentation, but Blueprint does indeed provide a bi-directional real-time integration with Jira and many other work management systems and ALM tools, things like Azure DevOps, Micro Focus ALM, you name it. So in the case of Jira, the user stories we automatically generate can absolutely be synchronized with Jira or any of those other work management technologies like Azure DevOps, for example. And it really helps bring them so that they can land directly in the development workspace and they can drive bot development. The same can be said about things like test cases, which are automatically generated again from digital blueprints. And those can be synced with test suites. You can use via those same integrations that are available. And we also have a robust set of things like webhooks and even a public API that you can use to build custom integrations or even connect Blueprint with any homegrown systems you may be using on either of those fronts.
Great. Let's see. Can you explain how Blueprint is able to reduce the cost of migration by so much?
Absolutely. So I'd be happy to. So migration has traditionally been so expensive and ultimately uncommon as a result because there wasn't any portability in the RPA's ecosystem. And what I mean by that is a bot from one platform couldn't really be exported and work in another platform, rightfully so. Each RPA tool speaks its own language, meaning there's a long list of incompatible actions, commands, variables, even the architecture in each of them. And that meant a bot needed to be basically built again in the target RPA tool for it to work. So entire digital workforces need to be rebuilt from scratch. With Blueprint, that massive manual effort and expense is removed. So our core goal is really to start migrating and converting that automation logic and that bot framework and the bot structure. So we're able to reduce costs so much because of what we call as our common object model. It's something that we've developed that sits behind the scenes, and it really provides these bilateral integrations we have with the RPA vendors. In other words, when bots are ingested into Blueprint, we're able to re-engineer and convert as many of the commands into this common model referred to as the digital blueprint. We take the whole structure, turn it into a digital blueprint, and then because of the common object model, we've developed, we can actually convert commands underneath into a generic framework that can then be sent into a new RPA platform. So those digital blueprints can then be further optimized and then fed into whatever RPA tool of choice. So ultimately, what it's doing is it's shifting the development effort from having to read an existing bot and rewrite it from scratch to you can use these digital blueprints to move an automation over, and now the developer can work in the new destination platform to get the bot up and running again.
So we have another one here. So every tech solution creates new problems over time, which need another tech solution. To manage post-production issues and are close to implementing RPA Supervisor, any commonalities with the same? I think maybe it's not fully clear. Amit, you submitted the question. Sorry, he just added, basically any comparison sheet of RPA Supervisor with Blueprint with reference to post-production management.
So I'm not as familiar, unfortunately, with RPA Supervisor. You know, our goal when it comes to post-production support and management is not to replace things like an orchestrator or, you know, the kind of orchestrator queue level manager that's in each RPA technology. In other words, we're not monitoring the bots in terms of their uptime and their running. What we're focused on is managing all of the dependencies, managing the mapping that the bot has back to the business, to the systems, to the rules and regulations. So I may not be answering your question to the level you're asking it, and I apologize, but I definitely encourage you to, you know, shoot us a note, and what we'd love to do is hop on a call and go through a little bit more detail. Definitely can set up a session to give you a little bit more of a deeper understanding of how we would compare to something like an RPA Supervisor piece of technology.
Great. We have another one here regarding Blueprint's migration use case. We're currently looking at migrating to Microsoft Power Automate. Does your migration solution support switching to Power Automate?
Absolutely. So the short answer there is yes. Blueprint has bilateral integration with Microsoft Power Automate, so we can ingest your bots from the RPA tool that you currently use, convert them into digital blueprints, and then feed them over into Microsoft's Power Automate platform.
Great, and we have one more question here. So how long does it take to implement Blueprint in an organization, including the learning curve?
This is a great question. Blueprint's enterprise platform itself is designed to be intuitive, really accessible to all stakeholders. So it's easy to use whether you're a business or technical user. It's very comparable and similar to what people have done for years in Word, Excel, and Visio. It's just a web-based, cloud-hosted solution. But there's also built-in interactive onboarding and contextual help resources to help guide you through Blueprint and accelerate the learning curve. With all that being said, Blueprint is delivered in starter pack offerings with unlimited users, and it's designed to get new customers up and running in under 2 weeks. And that means you're in there building digital blueprints and seeing a return on your investment within the first bot you build. In terms of time to value, you know, as I mentioned in one of the final slides in my presentation, our customers on average experience about a 5x return on their initial investment, and that's usually in the first 6 months that they're using Blueprint, and really for 6 months derived from the increase in bot availability and the RPA uptime in general.
Great, and that was our final question. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us. We'll be in touch with a recording of the session in the coming day or so. In the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out if you want to learn more about how Blueprint can help you achieve RPA at scale. In the chat function, there's a link there if you want to reach out with any questions, and also on your screen, there's a email and URL if you want to reach out to us. Thank you so much for participating today.